Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Rick Ingraham Talks to Strangers. And now, here's your host, Rick Ingraham.
Hey guys, welcome back to Rick Ingraham Talks to Strangers. We're here, episode 345.
Holy shit.
Yeah, it's probably 14 or 15. I don't honestly know.
I feel a lot of pressure all of a sudden.
This is the one the people have been waiting for. We got John Walker Jones here. Great three-name by the way.
Thank you. That was Harry Dean Stanton.
Yeah.
was the guy. I'm like,
That's an inspiration.
That kind of thing. Well, I moved here to be a bartender, wannabe actor, and I wanted a three-name name because I have no relationship with my father. But and that's that story. We don't need to
we'll get into it. We'll get to the bottom of that.
But I was looking at tombstones, and I found like these
As
names
people
like
do.
John W. Smoke, like these Western tombstones, like old timey. And then one guy's name was John Walker Jones, and I'm like, that's pretty fucking cool. Maybe I'll be John Walker Jones.
That's rad.
Yeah.
So you chose the whole name?
Yeah, and it was the last year that I lived in Oakland, and before I moved here, I was in East Oakland, and there's a bar like right around the corner from me called the 3411 Lounge, and very like hole in the wall, very just kind of neighborhood oriented place. And I went in there and I met the bartender Everett, and I was like talking about moving here, and I'm like, I think I'm going to call myself John Walker Jones, and he's like, God damn, that's a badass name, John Walker Jones. And I'm like, well, yeah, when a black guy says it, it sounds even cooler. He's like, well, everything does. And I'm like, well,
also true, Everett.
So
that's what I'm thinking. In my mind, I'm picturing Everett, and I'm just like, what does that guy look like to me? And then you say black guy, and I'm like, that changes everything.
Yeah, just
I'm picturing white Everett, and I'm just like, this dude is definitely creepy.
Yeah,
but black Everett, that dude sounds pretty dope.
Yeah, and he took it and ran with it, and I would come in after work sometimes, just hang out with him, have a beer and decompress, and I would walk in the door, and he would just announce John Walker Jones, and like people would turn, and he'd be like, have you met John Walker Jones yet? He's a comedian, he's a musician, he's an actor, and he just totally like built this up in this bar. And I would on Wednesday nights they had karaoke, and this woman Shanette would make this giant thing of gumbo. And there's a guy named was Darnell the Mad Hatter. He was like the DJ guy for the karaoke, and I would just put JWJ, and then he would get up on the mic and he's like, "Oh shit, coming up next, JWJ, Mr. John Walker Jones," and then I'd come up, and it was really cool because it really got
flow,
and I would see people in the neighborhood and they would yell at the car at me, John Walker Jones. So it was like, well, I guess apparently that it's gonna stick now.
Yeah. No, when I saw the name, I'm like, that's sweet, and I thought, if your name is John Walker Jones, you got to go three names because that Walker in the middle really solidifies it. Like, that sounds cool.
Yeah, there was like a character I think in a Marvel named Walker Jones.
Okay,
because I just kind of Googled a little bit to see if there was any, but no one else had the full thing. So I'm like, well, I'm just gonna do that now.
It sounds like a cool, like a blues musician from like the 50s.
Yeah, it's sometimes. I mean, it doesn't necessarily sound like a white dude.
Yeah.
But I mean, I thought it'd be fun to just have something that was kind of Westerny, 70s, kind of phony, because it doesn't really matter.
No,
you know, it's like
I love that you were looking at tombstones, thinking about a name change. Like, there's got to be someone out there who's dead.
Yeah,
figured out how to be cool.
There was one was John W. Smoke.
That's a pretty
which
sweet
I'm like,
name.
that's a pretty good one too. But I think that's also a Butthole Surfer song.
Okay.
And I'm like, well, I don't know if I want that. Not that I'm.
You don't want to be associated with the Butthole Surfers?
Butthole surfing.
I see here that you went on a Vegas vacation.
Oh, yeah.
That ended the marriage.
Well, amongst other things, but that really solidified things. Yes, I went to Vegas with my best friend, my wife and his wife at that time, and this is kind of, I don't know, 15 years ago or something.
Okay.
And we'd never been to Vegas before, so when we got there and realized, oh shit, you can just walk around drinking and smoking and they don't care. Like, this is amazing.
Yeah,
like,
it's a level of freedom where
like,
you're just, especially like you said, you were from Nebraska earlier. You can't do that kind of thing in real America. Like,
no, you do that in the basement, or
you walked around somewhere that's wood paneled for sure.
Yeah,
That's what I was used to growing up in Kansas. Was a lot of like hanging out in someone's basement, the fake wood paneling on the walls, and like this is where you get drunk.
Yeah, or just like shitty punker houses in the basement
Yep.
and with kegs and yeah. So once it was like, wow, you can just walk around. So we went to the store and bought 12 packs like assholes. We're just like walking around with the 12 packs, just drinking them and smoking, and did stuff that they wanted to. And then our wives would go to sleep, and we would go out and we would drink and gamble till like 7 in the morning. Come back to the hotel room, lay down and not sleep, but just like just be unconscious, for like 2 hours. So they wake up and like, okay, we want to go do this. And like, oh, fuck, all right, well, go do your thing. And then they'd go back home. And we'd go out, and we did this 3 nights in a row.
Yeah.
So like no sleep and just this ridiculous, kill a mule amount of beer. And then we're eating like shitty MSG fueled buffets every day, and we're not taking care of ourselves.
Yeah,
and,
very rarely do people go to Vegas.
Vegas is not known for that. It's really
had a healthy weekend.
A terrible person.
Yeah,
a lot of smoothies.
Yeah,
and...
just really took care of myself.
So the last day, we're gonna go. They want to go to Red Rocks Canyon. So we get up, again another shitty buffet, and start driving out there. And halfway there, we made a tragic mistake, and we stopped and we bought these 2 big things of coffee. And as we're getting closer, like my stomach is already like not stoked,
yeah.
and I can feel it. And I'm like smack talking like the canyon, like that canyon better be deep because I'm gonna fill that motherfucker up, and just so we get there, and there's like a tourist center. And it's closed. And it's like, oh, no. Like, well, I can probably deal for a little bit. So we drive further, and we come to, like, a vista point or whatever, a viewpoint. And we all get out of the car. And at this point, I realize both our wives have, like, platform shoes. They're all dressed up like we're going out. But like, we're going to a canyon. Why are you wearing platform shoes?
Right. We just brought Vegas clothes. So this is the option.
That's all they wore the whole time. So we're at the top, and we're looking down, and they're like, well, why don't you go down and like get a picture or take a picture of us or whatever? And we're like, okay, fine, because we're just wearing shorts and T-shirts because it's like it's hot.
You're in Vegas, and yeah.
So we're going down the hill, and like halfway down, it just hits me where it's like, oh, like dude, like I have to poop like now. Like it was like a fist, like working my
breaking its way out
beehole like a speed bag,
like a butthole surfers concert, if you know what I'm talking about. Oh, okay.
Well, there would have been a lot of surfing. There was quite a wave that crashed, but it was like my core and locked up my and everything just to tense to not, And I tell my friend, like, dude, don't make me laugh. Like, I need, and there was bushes ahead of us, so I'm like, if I can just get down there. But he starts laughing at me.
As a friend would.
Yeah, as my friend.
Yeah.
And I laugh, and I just barely and it all
explosion.
Like, just filled my underwear to capacity, and then out. Like, it's running down my legs.
Desert oasis.
It's just, and it's a nightmare, and I run.
Full George Brett.
And I get behind the bushes. And I take my shorts off and my underwear off, and I'm like spider walking, back on my hands, and there's no moderation.
It's a disaster.
It just keeps coming out, just this irresponsible amount of diarrhea. And my friend,
an irresponsible amount of diarrhea is
you
the
should not
best
be
way
living.
I've ever heard it described.
It truly was. And my friend's like, by the bushes, like a few feet away from me, and he's peeing. And he's watching me, and he's laughing so hard that he's not even making a sound. And his face is just red, and tears are streaming down his eyes. And I'm like, in this nightmare. And then all of a sudden, he gets this horror shock look in his face. And then he runs, and he kind of jumps over me. And then I see poop falling out of his shorts. So he's now shitting in his pants as well. So he gets...
Dude, this is best friend shit.
This is like friends for life.
Yeah.
So he's next to me.
Making connections, as Brody would say.
And same drill, takes his pants and underwear off, and we're both doing the spider walk across these rocks, and just like this bottomless smoothie machines. And I can't believe how much, and it smells like someone gutted a pig. It's just this horrible nightmare. I can't believe this is actually happening. And there's people like kind of walking around nearby. You can hear like voices like, oh my God, if some family comes and sees us. So
Right.
we're gonna like ruin like their whole life.
I
Like,
hope no
it was
children are here today.
It's like, so we finally get done, and we stand up, and like just totally like Porky Pig in it, just just a shirt, nothing else, on our legs, on our feet, and we're like, fuck. And so we grabbed our underwear, and what was left to kind of like trying to wipe whatever we could get off, and and then we walk around the bushes and we look up and there's our wives looking down, like waving, waiting for us to come up, and I'm like, oh man, I'm like, let's just go up there, get in the car, and just don't say anything,
The pants are on or off?
Pants are back on, but
Pants
underwear's
are on.
behind.
Yeah.
They're for the coyotes now.
Yeah,
It's like the coyote buffet that was going to happen.
They closed Red Rocks
sundown.
Canyon after this permanently. There's
But,
a toxic situation.
A bunch
going
of
on.
coyotes they found dead from like too much MSG. So we walk up and we just go into the back seat of the car, and they're like, "What's going on?" And they come over and we're like, "We got to go back to the hotel." I'm like, what do you mean? Like, we shit our pants.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, fuck you.
We
Like, no,
Vegas for 3 days, and then we drank a bunch of coffee.
We both literally shit our pants. And one of them sticks their head in the window like, oh, my God, you did.
Yeah.
So then we have to drive back to the hotel. And if you've been to Vegas, like, the hotels are so big that they look like it's like 2 blocks away, but it's like
You're
45
miles.
minutes.
Yeah.
And they're so mad at us. And it's just this quiet 45-minute drive. I mean, at one point I said, like, this will stay in Vegas, right?
Yeah,
right, everybody?
yeah,
Am I right, ladies? Like they're not laughing. It's not funny to them.
They're not enjoying themselves.
they're just like they're already just mad at us because we've been up drinking like assholes all night the whole time.
Right.
And so we get to the hotel and they just drop us off and they leave. And we're like,
That's a good sign.
Yeah. So we have to like go to the MGM and make a beeline to the elevator and hope that either no one's near us or no one gets in the elevator with us or no one's on the elevator with us.
Someone shit their pants in the desert? I recognize that smell anywhere.
Oh, that's a desert shit.
Yeah. Did you shit any of them wild donkeys while you're out there shitting yourself?
So we get in the elevator, no one's on there, get up, clean ourselves off, and then later they finally come back and my wife comes in and she's just so mad at me. And I'm like, what? Like, I don't get it. Do you think we didn't plan on doing this, you know? But we weren't.
It does say on the agenda, shit your pants at 3:30.
You never shit your pants, so you shit your pants in a canyon.
That's
It's
exactly
It's
right.
a very freeing,
That's the place to do
liberating, close to nature.
Sorry, I like to
situation.
organically have irresponsible amounts of diarrhea. That's the triple
Oh,
triple
God.
buffet diarrhea.
Irresponsible amounts of diarrhea. That sounds like a punk band, maybe.
Yeah.
So yeah, she was mad, and we just had this kind of bad conversation and whatever, and it was kind of at the end of it anyways, and then 6 months later it was
done.
totally done. So happy ending.
Yeah.
So
In the end you are free, but yeah.
so yeah, and now I've told probably several people this story as well.
Yeah. Listen, this is only going to get you love, as far as I can.
Yeah, I mean, I know a lot of people would be who's that guy who shit himself in the canyon?
Yeah,
What a charmer.
They're not going to say who's that
got a
guy.
lot
They're
of-
going
we
to
got
go
a lot of
John.
roles
They're
for
going to go
that
John
guy.
Walker Jones.
John Walker Jones. Pants
That's a bad
shitter.
motherfucker. The coyote killer? That guy knows how to party.
Yeah, with his MSG diarrhea. So yeah.
And you said you grew up in Nebraska. What part of Nebraska did you?
I grew up in Lincoln.
Okay.
And yeah,
So that's where the university is.
Yeah. So it's not completely hillbilly ethos, but the problem is like small towns. Probably, are you in Kansas City or where were you?
Yeah,
at?
I'm from the suburbs of Kansas City.
So everyone that's from the outskirts of town goes to school, and they just kind of further the kind of hillbilly ethos,
Right. I mean, there's really I can't even tell you another college in Nebraska.
Well, yeah,
I know there's a couple like
there might be
Christian
one
schools.
in Omaha or something.
Yeah.
But yeah, but it's the same with your
Mutual of Omaha.
Yeah. Well, I was talking earlier about the seeing you do this stuff about Kansas and just everyone's in absurd civic pride. Well, like in Nebraska's the same way, where there's like literally 9 out of 10 people have a Nebraska shirt or hoodie, or it's really kind of Twilight, especially if you're not from there. Like I brought my girlfriend there, and it was kind of messed her up a little. It's just like, what is up with it's like people roaming around Nebraska with Nebraska shirts on.
Well, and it's weird too.
know.
Like I never really rocked any sort of Like I never wore like Royals T-shirts or Chiefs T-shirts when I was in Kansas City.
Yeah.
But I have some now. I wear them in L.A., but it doesn't seem as weird. Like I always think it's weird when I would fly back to Kansas City. There's always a plane full of people in Kansas City gear.
Well, yeah, you feel it's like when you're there, it felt weird because I was not into being there.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah, that's how I was too.
I
I'm
was
like,
probably like 9 or 10, and like, oh man, I just need to grow up and like
so I can
get
get
the
out
hell
of here. Yeah, yeah.
You
That's
know?
how I felt the same way. I'm just like, once I'm an adult, I'm not gonna.
Yeah, because
live
yeah,
here.
I moved away and I never even thought about going back because it was just
Yeah.
it was not a.
Where did you move to first?
I first moved to Minneapolis because I had friends that had moved up there, and it was kind of the closest place. And someone was moving to Amsterdam, so they had a room open. So I'm like, okay, cool. Because I think I was like 21 when I moved there.
Yeah.
But
What'd you do in Minneapolis? Just bartend?
in Minneapolis, I was in bands for a long time. So I was
What'd you play?
I played guitar and sang in a few bands, and then I played drums in a band. I had a T-shirt shop for a while called Stroker Ace with the Burt Reynolds Museum on the inside of it and a Burt Reynolds sign.
Fuck
And,
yeah.
Very into
Where
that.
does your appreciation of Burt Reynolds come from?
Well, a friend of mine who's a little bit older, but we both loved the old 70s movies like Every Which Way But Loose or, these Burt... And we would get drunk and watch these movies together, and they're hilarious. And we wanted to start a T-shirt shop ourselves because we had learned how to do it, and... we're like, oh, well, when you pull a squeegee across as a stroke, we'll call it Stroker Ace. And we had like a Burt Reynolds sign with him in a cowboy hat and like these two like cross squeegees.
Right.
The Burt Reynolds museum in the front of it, and we like the first year we used the company credit card to fly down to Jupiter to see the Burt Reynolds and Friends Museum.
That's a real thing?
It was a real thing. It recently in Vegas, which was my second return to Vegas, he auctioned off all of his stuff because he owned Lonnie Anderson, like, back alimony.
Right.
And all that stuff that I'd already seen, like, years and years ago, was auctioned off and sold. I went back to see it again.
Get some more Burt.
Some more Burt. And I got a picture. I went to the event, and Lonnie Anderson was there. And she looks like exactly the same. Like the hair, it was like Jennifer from WK. It was like, oh my God, it's her. And she's like 2 booths over. And I had this weird outfit. I was wearing like jeans and like a dark gray shirt with a tie and like a camouflage Waylon Jennings hat.
Okay, sure.
Trucker hat.
As people do.
And I had like a bag over my shoulder, and I passed my phone to my girlfriend, like, follow me. I'm going to get a picture. I don't know what I'm going to do, but I'm going to get one. So I go over there. And I was like, oh, I'm so sorry, Mrs. Anderson, to interrupt you, but I'm a writer, and I'm working on an article for the Burt Reynolds auction. Is there any way I could get a picture? And she's like, oh yeah, of course, like that. We need as many people as we could. So I just like have my arm around her or whatever. And she's a teeny little lady.
Yeah.
And had
she did crush it on
it was crazy.
WKRP in Cincinnati. Just destroyed it.
So that was my second return to Vegas.
I mean, it sounds like a better trip.
Well, there's one thing. Oh man, this is so stupid. So we're there.
We're looking for so stupid. So if you have
But
it
you got the right guy. I'm your idiot.
We encourage that kind of tomfoolery. In
This
these
is so
parts.
dumb. But I post the auction, I went to the restroom, and I was a little drunk at the time.
Did you buy any Burt?
I didn't.
Good?
No, it was really expensive.
Super expensive.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I'm just like, I took a paddle and I bought a book that had everything that was in there, or whatever, and got my picture with Lonnie Anderson, which was Instagram, and
Yeah.
so I go in the restroom, and there's this kid who's probably 12, and he's going to the bathroom at the urinal, but his pants are on his feet, like like when a kid
Little
would do
kid
when
style,
you're little,
when you're like 5,
when
maybe.
you're 5.
Yeah.
But this kid is like 11, and I'm like, what are your parents? What
Yeah.
is your
Who
dad
raised you,
doing?
man?
And I'm just thinking this is so funny, and I take a picture like an asshole, like not even thinking. And I go out and I find my girlfriend. I'm like, look at this kid. What is wrong with him? It's like, what is wrong with you? What are you doing? Like, I just didn't even think, what if someone walked into the bathroom and you're taking, like, just like, oh my God, it was so dumb. And then
I remember Yeah, I was gonna say we got a trafficker on our hands this
Yeah.
week. No, I remember when I was probably in high school or something, and I went to a UMKC basketball game, and it was T-shirt night or whatever it was. And so everyone got a free T-shirt, but they were all the same size. So if you were a 5-year-old kid, they still gave you the adult large,
like a double XL
whatever
or
it was.
something.
Yeah, and I just remember putting it on and being like, this is way too big for me. I was probably 14 or 15. And at one point I walked into the bathroom and there was a kid standing there, and he had his pants all the way down around his ankles, and he had his shirt tucked up under his chin. And then he was standing there peeing, and then I was peeing next to him and, doing the stare straight ahead, act like there's nothing going on. And then the kid just goes, "Oh, no." And I looked over, and there's just urine spreading. His shirt had dropped down, and poor kid was just, so it just dropped, and he was just pissing all over the inside of the shirt.
Oh, poor
and then
guy.
The thing was just soaking wet. I'm like, "I'm sure they'll give you another shirt." Like, that's what was bothering him.
Yeah.
I walked out immediately. Some poor idiot is in there
horrible
peeing all
shame
over
that's gonna
himself.
scar you for life.
Yeah.
Well, and
Hopefully he's watching, and he's like, "That son of a bitch."
Well, this came back to haunt me like 2 years later, when iPhone was doing that whole like a picture montage. Like 2 years ago, you were in Vegas, right?
Right.
And it has like the music and stuff. And I had completely forgotten about this at this point. And we're post work, and it's like me and like 3 or 4 other coworkers, and I'm like, oh my god. This is my trip to Vegas. Look at this. There's pictures of me with Lonnie Anderson coming up. And, it's playing this bad music, and photos are coming in and out. And then all of a sudden, there's the 10-year-old boy, the 11-boy's ass. And it's like, and I'm like, oh, my God, I totally forgot that. And I was in there, and they're like, what is this? Why do you have this in your phone? I'm like,
Listen, it's not what you think, okay?
Yeah,
he was a
just
strange kid. I don't even know what his name is. Like, listen,
yeah.
this is not classic John Walker Jones type stuff. He only shows us naked pics of the ladies.
Oh God, yeah, that was. I mean, I can't believe I hadn't deleted. But so that was really embarrassing.
All right,
so
then at some point you said you lived in Oakland. Was that your first California stop?
Yeah. I was in Portland for a couple of miserable years, and then
I had a friend who lived in San Francisco for a long time, and his brother lived in Portland, so he went up to visit him, and he was like, "Man, this place is great." And so he moved to Portland, and then after like 2.5 weeks, he was like, "I'm moving back. This place sucks." I'm like, "That's all it took?"
Yeah.
Like, there's a week's worth of things to do here.
Yeah,
and then
it's a great place to visit.
Yeah.
But I mean, I moved there sight unseen because my girlfriend at the time had an opportunity and they would pay for us, and I wanted to get out of Minneapolis because I'd been there too long, and I think within like 2 months I realized I'd made a terrible mistake, and I was telling my friends that I felt like I'd moved into Whole Foods.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's basically what you picture. It's homeless people and like pretentious.
Yeah.
Well, I accept everyone, but also no one is as good as me.
Well, this kind of smug, kind of liberalism, and then there's the show was on Portlandia, but I couldn't watch it because it just made me angry.
I love that.
Like this is just too close.
This
to
is
home.
too on. Yeah, this is too on the nose. I can't deal with this.
So yeah, a couple years later, a friend of mine and his girlfriend split up, and he's like, "Hey, if you want to come live here, like the room's open," and I managed to get a job from a couple friends like on Facebook. Like I knew that I lived in Oakland. Like, "Hey, do you live in Oakland? Or you're in Oakland? Do you know anywhere looking?" We both work at this place, and they need a bartender. And so they called me up on the telephone, and they're like, "Well, your friends like you. When can you be here?" And I'm like, "This weekend." So, like, my girlfriend came home, like, "Oh, so by the way, I'm moving to Oakland this weekend." And
she was still your girlfriend?
She still was. Well, she ended up moving with me, and we were there for like a long time. And we did split up, but she's like one of my best friends.
Okay.
And it's great.
You don't destroy your relationships with people?
This is the one that I didn't. This is the one.
I like that. This is the one.
Yeah.
this is the one that I did not destroy everything.
Yeah, I'm a little more evolved than I was when I was shitting my pants in the desert.
Listen, as far as I'm concerned, that's the highest level of evolution.
Well,
when you and a buddy can just really bond in that moment, let's lets you
I know.
you're
So
doing
it's very
things right.
like kind of like Vietnam vets now, almost
Yeah.
with that. Like we should have held hands at one point. We were both on the ground together.
We're gonna survive.
We're in the trenches, brother.
Yeah. All right. So then, when did you move to L.A.? What brought you to L.A.?
So I moved to L.A. February 15th, 2020.
Oh wow.
Like
Okay.
really bad timing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you said things are hot in L.A. right now.
Well, I had been doing some stand up, and then I got tired of doing stand up, and then I started doing acting classes, and then I focused my attention on that. And then at the end of the year, I was like ready. I'm like, well, I'm just gonna go to LA, and I knew it was gonna be daunting because I didn't really know anyone here, and no one was going with me. And I came in January, and I stayed with a friend that I sort of knew 10 years ago, but I saw that he had moved here with his girlfriend. I'm like, can I please stay with you?
Yeah.
And find a place.
It's a very
you know?
essential part of being able to
Yes,
move to L.A.
Yeah. And I was with them for 3 weeks as their relationship is imploding, and they're like getting drunk and yell at each other every night, and I'm sleeping on a blow-up mattress in the living room, and it's just like,
Yeah.
But I got a place, went home, moved in with a woman in Studio City, and yeah, and then lockdown, and it was like so.
It's such a weird thing.
Yeah, it was. Well, because my only experience of Los Angeles is a pandemic. Like,
Right.
I literally had a month.
Of open Los Angeles before. It was like.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it got weird too. Like when they started we're shutting down all the beaches and stuff. I'm like, that's the only place anyone can go.
Right.
I don't.
Yeah, and I wanted to go because they had that whole the blue phosphorescent with the red algae. You know, that was like in March or April, but then the beaches were closed. And it's like, fuck, I really wanted, and I wish I just went and did it. Like, what were they? They weren't like arresting people, but everyone was just terrified.
Yeah.
You know, at that point to go anywhere. So it was like, I mean, it was hard. I mean, I got into some fucking dark places, you know, because I didn't really know anyone, and then there's this lockdown.
Right.
You know, I don't know the person I'm living with.
Yeah.
You know.
So, and when you say living with, you're sharing a house, an apartment.
I had rented it was the bigger bedroom with a bathroom, so I kind of had that, which was fine. But I've never lived with anyone that I hadn't known
you
before.
weren't, friends with.
Yeah. So, you know, it was, I mean, needless to say, I got a therapist at one point. Because it's like, dude, I am like, you know, I was making jokes about how I was going to start calling like the suicide hotline because I was so desperate for help. And I would just keep doing it till they, like, after star 6, 7 after a while. Because like, John, we know you're not going to kill yourself.
Come on,
just stop
man.
calling. No, I'm serious. I just got this thing with my dad. And I need to work out. And then I'm totally,
then I'm done.
And then I'm
I
blowing my
need some
brains
closure
out.
first.
Yeah, so.
They're like, "Are you lonely, man? Because it seems like you should probably just, call a call girl or something."
Oh.
You're like, listen, there's dead call girls already. That's how it goes.
So yeah, it's been a very unique.
Yeah, because then there's no acting
experience.
classes and stuff.
No,
Were you
there's
doing
nothing.
Zoom?
You know, I did a podcast with a friend. He
Yeah.
would not.
Did they take you? Did you solve any crimes? He's obviously not into QAnon if he's taking pictures of 10-year-olds.
Oh God. I should, but I was like, should I say this one? Maybe leave this one, but whatever.
I think it's all right. That kid's got to be of age now.
Yeah,
So.
he'll probably like sue me like the Nirvana baby.
Yeah. That's exactly right.
I remember that. I turned around, I saw some guy taking a picture wearing a Waylon Jennings hat and looked oddly happy, like he had just
The hundreds of
Ronnie
children
Anderson.
that probably have a memory where like, that's probably the guy. Not
Yeah.
realizing. Everyone after a good Lonnie Anderson sighting has that embarrassing kid in the bathroom
like the
moment.
post thing that happens. Yeah.
But
Well, how long have you been out here?
I've been out here almost 19 years, something like that.
Did you come straight from Kansas?
Yeah. I basically waited until I was 21, and then once I could get into the comedy clubs, I moved out here.
Well, that's. I mean, you had purpose, and you kind of knew what you were doing.
Yeah,
you know.
I started doing comedy there, and it was kind of pointless. I did the comedy club in Kansas City, and then I did a couple of like the random clubs around in that region.
Mm-hmm.
I went to Tulsa once. I went to Wichita, St. Louis. Did like free 5-10 minutes.
Sure. Yeah, anywhere you could get up on there. Well, I'm curious, like, what your experience was doing stand up in Kansas versus doing it in L.A.
Well,
I mean, go ahead.
Yeah, it was weird. It was doing open mic there is strange because there was always lots of people there. Like the open mics had like 100 people at the show, and it'd be me and like 15 other open micers. We each did like 3 to 5 minutes, but a lot of the people all brought friends and like they brought a crowd. So like I never had anyone, like my girlfriend at the time would come and watch me sometimes, but otherwise I'm not telling people because I was starting comedy.
Like kinda...
But there's a lot of people who would pack it out. So I did it for like a year and a half in Kansas City, where I just thought there's a lot of, when you do open mics, there's going to be a crowd.
Yeah.
And then I moved out here, and the first open mic I did, there was 2 people in the crowd, and then a bunch of other open micers.
I was just curious, like, what your experience was like, because the open mics that I would do, like in Minneapolis or Portland or Oakland, were, it's this small pond, whatever kind of scenario. Yeah. And I had a lot of things or instances where it's like, it just kind of like the culture was kind of really, really high school. And like, if you've been doing it for a long period of time, you're just funny. And there would be this forced laughter. And it was really...
Yeah, I mean, that's basically how it is, I think, in every non-major market.
Yeah, so now I'm just curious.
It just basically becomes, like, they had the same like 3 guys basically tried to get all the stage time at all the places to go up.
Yeah.
And, like, they had their little clique or whatever it was. And
if
you weren't a part of that,
then they almost like hated you. Yeah. I would get up and do open mics, and I could see them like in the front row with just disdain.
Yeah.
And their arms crossed. And, it's like, what the fuck, dude? Like, you know how hard this is? Why are you being such a jerk? Like.
But they don't want the competition because there's such limited availability to do comedy, I think, places like that. And I would have a lot of guys like give me terrible advice about, like, when I started telling people I was going to move to LA, and they were like, "No, you shouldn't do it." And I'm like, "Why?" And they're like, "Well, you gotta be a known headliner. You gotta have a solid hour before
you're not ready or what." I'm
like, "You guys have literally been here for like 18 years. You told me you started doing comedy in the mid 80s. This is like early 2000. I'm like,
yeah.
You don't have a solid hour. You just bomb regularly every week at this open mic.
You have your shaky 10 minutes.
Yeah, and you run a show at the Fazoli's patio or something.
Well, did you think when you got to LA did you find that the scene here was a little bit more open, a little bit more,
There's just more of a scene. So, like, I started just doing all the open mics I could. And back then, the early 2000s, there was, like, I can't remember what the website was, but it basically had a list of all the open mics.
Chuckle Monkey.
Oh, yeah, it was. That is what it was, Chuckle Monkey. And so, I would look it up, and, there's 3 open mics. If you wanted to hit them up, it'd be like on Tuesdays was Laugh Factory, and then there was a pizza place in Northridge, and so I would just hit them all up and meet some people, and most of them were pointless, and it was just like that wasn't worth it at all to drive an hour and 15 minutes to go bomb for 3 minutes at a pizza place, but.
Yeah, it's a commitment.
Yeah.
I mean, I've gone back and forth, but I have too much respect for the art form to do it half-assed, so it's like, well, I don't want, But I thought about just doing it again here for the fuck of it, especially because I don't know anybody, and I thought, well, if I just go do stand-up again, I'll at least meet funny people, and if something comes out of that's great, because it's like, I don't know, what do you have to lose? But,
right.
And I have a couple friends that do it now, and then they did say post lockdown that it seemed like people were a lot more like, hey, you're Al, you're doing stuff, like, and
friendly,
just kind of a friendly, kind of cool, kind of more, helpful, supportive vibe, which that's not how it should be, but
it definitely is. I mean, people are definitely a lot friendlier in the post-lockdown world with each other.
Yeah,
there's a lot of competition, I think, beforehand, where now it's just kind of, and the popularity of podcasts too, I think, make it so a lot more people have reach to perform more places or whatever it is. But yeah, I found Los Angeles to be open in terms of when I moved out here, just, having places to perform, that kind of thing.
Looks like you're up.
Oh, shit.
Yeah.
All right. We'll be right back, and when we come back, we'll have Sarah, and we'll ask some more questions, if that's cool. All right.
Say hi to everyday people.
Hi, guys. We're back.
That was very announcery. Hey guys, we're back.
I always try and go morning radio.
I was gonna say
Yes.
Okay, you're watching Rick in the Morning here at W Buzz 43.
This episode is brought to you by your mom's butt. Your mom's butt, a big fat butt that farts.
Dang.
Right there.
You've done sponsor promos before, I can tell.
That was in the chamber.
We're back. Sarah is here. She's
Yeah.
with me.
I'm with you.
We're about ready to delve deeper into the world
right.
of John Walker
You
Jones.
always say, like, because I'm like a moron and I don't know what to ask.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, this is just me inserting myself into your show.
I'll take it. We need the structure, Sarah.
I'm just like really fascinated. With the name, first of all. Like, can you tell us what your original name was, or you don't have to. You can be.
You mind my legal name?
Yeah, your legal name. You don't have to. You don't have to. I want to know why, like, what made you decide. And I was thinking that maybe your legal name was like Mike Smith.
No, it's still John, but well, it's funny because this comes back to my divorce.
Oh,
So when I got divorced,
you don't want to have to pay alimony. So you're like, I'm changing
there's
my
no
name.
kids, there's no owning anything. It was just like in and out. So
She took your name too.
Faked his death.
well, she kept it for a bit, and I'm like, why are you keeping my name? And like, why am I keeping it? Like, I have no, I don't
no
talk to my dad.
connection.
I don't need it. And at that time, I was listening to like a lot of George Jones and Waylon Jennings. So I came up with originally like, well, maybe I'll change my name to John Waylon Jones, which is like so country. But and I looked at the cost or whatever. I'm like, fuck it, I'm not gonna do that. So I didn't.
Right.
And then years later, when I was in Oakland and started getting into acting classes and stuff, and I was like, well, if I'm gonna do this, then maybe I don't want to use my real last name. I'm gonna find something else. And I remembered John Waylon Jones, and I'm like, God, that's almost too like country. And so I just was like, started Googling, Western tombstones, and then I saw the John Walker Jones, and I'm like, oh, I think that one's even better. And and of course we talked about the whole experience at the bar. But another thing, my friend Everett is also a graphic designer. And I was like, I think John Walker Jones would look kind of cool on a T-shirt. Just like block letter, like John Walker Jones. Like those the gray ash, old school.
Yeah.
50-50 gym shirts or whatever. And he's like, I think that's a pretty good idea. And like a week later, he sends me a text, and he's like, John Walker Jones, come to the bar. I'm like, all right, cool, dude. And I go in there, and he's wearing a John Walker Jones shirt behind the bar. And he printed me one up and some other people. And
Solid advertising.
yeah, exactly. And it was a Sunday night, and Sunday nights they did a blues jam. And since I played drums and stuff, I would just come and play drums and hang out. And I'm there that one night, and like the other musicians are there, and like, he's got his own T-shirt now. So it was just like,
He's way up in the merch game. Everyone knows
It's like,
merch is step
if
one.
I've done anything, it'll be merching and advertising.
It's like a bartender with a business card. You're like, this guy's really serious.
Yeah, he's taking this way too
Yeah.
seriously. I had a buddy who wanted to get into making sketches, and this was probably 15 years
Like
ago when there was
sketch comedy
like
or
sketch
like
comedy
courtroom sketches.
or yeah,
both probably.
I mean, that's a cool thing to get into.
Hey,
It's like
might be your next gig.
maybe, yeah.
I go, so what's the deal? Did you write some sketches that you want us to film? And he was like, we're not there yet. And I go, what does that mean? And he's like, we got to start with merch. And I'm like, I don't.
Starting.
Yeah, I don't think anyone's gonna
Yeah,
buy
you're
merch
getting
for
a
something
little
that doesn't
ahead of
exist
yourself.
yet. He's
I mean, I
like,
appreciate the confidence.
yeah,
you
but
know.
now it's like every time I see comedians selling their merch, I'm like, that guy has like 4 minutes of open mic material, and he's got merch.
Yeah.
I've never sold anything with my name on it.
Is your name always been like you didn't change your name?
No. I
Isn't?
when
Oh
I
no, I
started-
was thinking James Ingram. I'm like, isn't there like a soul
Yeah.
singer? But it's
Oh
James.
yeah.
It's
See,
not
my
Rick.
name. So
That's my dad's name though, James Ingram.
It was. Are you using your real name?
my mother's name is James Ingram.
That makes sense. I knew there was a connection here somewhere.
No, my full name is Sarah Tiana Haynes.
Ooh.
And
Tiana.
so when I first started moved out here, like Sarah Haynes was like a reporter who's now actually she's on Good Morning America, but like that was like a name. So I was like, oh, I'll go by my whole name because my dad gave me the name Tiana and he thinks it's Native American. Sorry, Dad, if you're listening. Because Tiana was a Native American woman that was married to Sam Houston, and she was like a medicine woman or something. So like he thinks that we're part Cherokee, which, you know, most white people in America probably have some sort of Cherokee in them, not by way of
It was consensual.
yeah, sure.
Yeah.
So
It wasn't like co-opted. It was like a.
I was like, I'll go by my whole name, Sarah Tiana Haynes, like Sarah Jessica Parker, Sarah Michelle Gellar. They were
Yeah.
all very popular at
Yeah.
the
The
time.
3 name is a solid.
was
Three
like,
names is solid.
sure,
Yeah.
I'm
Daniel
a
Day
woman.
Lewis.
You're either a great actor or a serial
Yeah.
killer.
Yeah.
And I was like, most women aren't serial killers, so I
Yeah,
won't have that
smart.
stigma. And then when I started doing stand-up, like MCs would come up to me and they'd be like, how do you say your middle name? And I'd be like, it's Tiana, like a tiara but with an N, Tiana. And so when they'd announce me, they'd be like, please welcome Sarah Tiana. And then they would forget my last name because they were focused so hard on trying to pronounce my
yeah.
middle name right. And then I was like, oh, well, I'm probably not going to have my last name forever anyway, God willing, knock on wood. I still have it.
Yep.
Thanks, Chris.
Yeah, Chris, we're on to you, buddy.
But
I don't know
so I
Chris,
ended
but he
up
sounds
That's
like
her
a
boyfriend.
terrible person.
Yeah.
the father of my child. We've been together a long time. We're not married because he's a Patriots fan and he's won enough. But
Nice.
anyway,
I like that shot.
I ended up
Into
just
the shadows.
reducing my name. And now when people meet my parents, they're like, hi, Mr. and Miss Tiana. It's
Yeah.
so like now they've stopped correcting people. They're like, nice to meet you. I'm
Right.
Mr. Tiana. I'm Mrs. Tiana. Like they just
They've
take
accepted
it.
the role.
Yeah, they've accepted it because it's like it's too hard to explain.
Yeah.
When I started open mic in Los Angeles, I went by Dick Ingram.
No, you
And
didn't.
I did. I swear to God. I was.
That's very close to like
That-
big dick energy.
Yeah.
But no,
No, it
it's like
sounds
but I
like-
shortened
He
it
is
to Dick Ingram.
Yeah.
Yeah, but just so many old people are still named Dick.
Yeah,
you
but-
know.
and that was my grandpa, the one I'm
Right.
named after. He was Dick O'Brien,
Mm-hmm.
and so I thought it was funny, and my persona has always been I'm kind of a dick, so I'm like, this makes sense, and so I did open mics as Dick Ingram for a year, and then when I started working here, Eleanor was like, hey, so you want to work here? The guys recommended you. I'm like, yeah, and she's like, what's your name? I'm like, Dick Ingram. She's like, is that really your name, or is that like a joke? I'm like, it's my name. She's like, what does your family call you? I'm like, Rick. She's like, I'm not calling you Dick. And then I just dropped it, and I never got back to it.
Unless
Man,
you're
if-
behaving like one.
Yeah.
If we change this to Dick Ingram Talks to Strangers.
It's going to get,
Dick Talks to Strangers is a great.
yeah.
That's
That-
pretty good too.
That could really
We could get a whole new community
take us to the moon.
Or get in a lot of trouble.
Yeah.
because people might think it's Dick Talks
Yeah.
Yeah.
to strangers.
Or listen, if we can get a video, maybe some animation, get the penis talking just instead of me. Anyway, Argus Hamilton told me when I got past here and I started performing as a paid regular, he was like, what's your full name?
Of course.
And I go, Richard Allen Ingram. Well, there it is. That's the name. You go by Richard Allen Ingram from now on. And I was like, yeah, I don't know. It seems kind of formal. And he was like, trust me, you're going to want to change it. And I didn't listen to him. And I feel like I probably would have minimal success at least if I had
Man.
gone with either Dick Ingram or Richard Allen Ingram.
I'm not. I'm a big Argus fan.
Yeah.
I always bring up Argus because I'm usually opening the room because I'm kind and I'm not really dirty.
Yep.
And
And you have
Argus
a
likes to
captivating smile.
I have a
That's right.
captivating
and
smile.
an exciting
Kept it on
aura
point,
around
yeah.
you.
Argus
so.
likes to kiss me on the mouth. So that's the reason.
That's fun. Lucky you.
After he's told me about his numerous girlfriends in the back.
Yep.
But I always feel like when Argus does offer me a bit of advice, it's usually very good advice.
Yeah.
because he's been here since 1976.
Yeah, his advice to me was change my name to my full real name, and then other than that, his only advice was like, stop making fun of me all the time.
Yeah, well,
And I was just
he
like,
always
not
did an
listening to
impression.
that either.
Because I will murder you.
Yeah, trust me. If I'm Richard Allen Ingram, you're dying tonight.
So, John Walker Jones.
Yes.
Do you and your ex-wife still speak?
No.
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 You
I
both
didn't mean to
gave up
laugh
the
so
name
much.
eventually. And
Did she keep your name?
No, she got remarried. I mean, we've talked.
okay.
It's just one of those things where it's best to not.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes
there's no reason to.
Yeah, and I feel like you can kind of go back to just being that person that you were at that point when you're not that person anymore.
Yeah.
Like there's no bad blood. I don't wish her any ill will or anything like that.
Well, I do, because who goes to Vegas to sightsee?
Well-
Because I,
Yeah.
as a
you go there to be a
degenerate-
heathen. I mean, that's
I-
why it's there.
Listen, I'm not going there to just like party. I don't go to clubs, but I am a degenerate gambler. Like, I love slot machines. I'm going there this weekend. This episode will be airing after I've already gone, so sorry you didn't get to see me and Tosh at the Mirage. But
Nice.
you know, I live for slot machines. I actually play them on an app on my phone.
You're that into it.
I'm that into it.
Wow.
It's just like, so I'm like, when people say, oh, we went to Las Vegas and we went to Red Rocks.
I've
I'm like,
done it.
What?
Yeah.
You have?
Yeah.
Did
No.
I legitimately hate everything about Vegas.
I do too. The last time I went back, I'm like, I'm never coming back here
yeah.
again. It's just.
I went a couple times when I partied, and I thought it was fine. But even after like 2 nights, I'm just like, we got to get the fuck out of here.
Yeah, it's
And
just there's just a gross
Yeah.
energy to it, and there's all those people that were like slapping their hands
Yeah,
with
the
the
cards.
with the
Oh,
cards
see,
for the
I
sex
think-
workers, and
Yeah.
I completely disagree. I think it has the best restaurants in the world, all within walking
See,
distance.
I'm diabetic, so I can't
Oh
even
my
enjoy
God.
most
I
of
like
Here
all the
it goes.
neon. I like all the lights. That's very exciting to me. But that's kind of it now.
Yeah.
And like if you go downtown, the old part where they have like the crazy,
Yeah.
all the
Yeah.
animation and stuff, and like I think Vegas, or like almost every city in America anymore, would have been so cool in the 70s and 80s.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
they're just all not.
It's all
anymore.
commercialized
It's
and
all-
obnoxious now.
Well, when you enjoy gambling and you have money, like you,
Jeez, so
sorry.
that's my problem, I
But
think.
first of all, I love 24-hour room service, which is very hard to get in
Most
like
places,
a lot of
yeah.
places on the road. And I think the people watching, because I don't really go out and walk around. Like, I'll go, there's like 3 hotels that I will normally stay at because that's where I get free rooms. So it's like one of these 3.
Yeah.
And then we started bringing my baby there because
to Vegas.
Yes.
And putting it on the table.
no, because let me
never-
tell you,
Put it on black.
How much for a baby?
It's like
when I've been going to Vegas for like, the last 10, 15 years, like in
Really?
a fun, like gambling kind of way. And
not a problem, not
never
a
looked
problem
up.
way, but a fun.
no,
Fun
I definitely
game.
I definitely have a problem, but like Cage doesn't need to go to college. Like,
No.
let's think about, like, he's not going to be smart enough to get in college unless he gets a scholarship to play sports. And, like,
Smart.
that's what we're counting on.
Yeah, focus.
But when I've gone to Vegas, I've never looked up. And there is so much to see if you look up. Like, the chandeliers are crazy. There's flowers.
Yeah.
There's mirrors. There's all kinds of decorations. And when you're a little babe, like, he thinks it's the craziest, coolest place.
There is a
There's
Oh
lot
yeah,
of
water
it's like Christmas
shows.
Town or something.
Yeah. So, like,
lights everywhere.
yeah. And we were always, like, incredibly... And he likes swimming, and there's, like, big pools and, like...
Yeah, I just can't. I
Again.
can't handle it. I feel like I've told this story on every podcast I've ever been on,
Probably this one twice.
but the amount of Marky Mark and the Funky Bunch
Oh,
that
right,
plays
yes.
is just too much for me to be able to handle. I stayed at the Harrah's one time, and it just about every 2 or 3 hours it came back
Really?
on loop, and I just sat in my room for the first day, just like, I'm gonna lose my mind and I'm gonna have to murder people. And then I was
Understandable.
and
That's
then
a
I'm like,
song
you
that
know
will
what, I
make
could-
me feel murderous rage as well.
Like, yeah, I just go, you know what? I could probably just go ask them to give me a different room.
Yeah.
And then I did, and they were like, yeah, whatever, it's fine.
See,
It's
whenever
just
you-
playing in every
Yeah,
single
it was
room.
like,
Like,
oh,
oh,
God.
God damn
Whenever
it.
you tell that story, because the Wahlburgers is actually attached to the Harrah's on that new outside front.
Okay.
So that's
wonder if
why
it's in that
I
place.
thought No, it's definitely by the carousel. So to
Yeah.
the right of the carousel, there's a lot of little restaurants, and then there's a couple of big ones on the second level.
Right.
And there's definitely a Wahlburgers there. So I thought whenever you were talking about that, I'm like, I wonder when they built that Wahlburgers.
They
and if
probably knew.
That's why.
Well, they said this is the Marky Mark section of Vegas because they play it so often.
The other thing that sucks about it now too is that like all the streets are like cut off. They have like the fence and whatever because I guess lots of people were just getting ran over.
Oh, yeah.
So you have to like go up and around these stairs and into these insanely expensive malls, and then further down to just actually cross the
walking
street.
through, yeah.
And yeah, it's just.
Yeah. So you're not into it. That's okay. But I was just, my whole point was that, like, good riddance to your wife if she was going to Vegas to sightsee. That
Yeah.
was my whole point.
She wanted
Well,
to
I'll
get
take
that
that.
nature experience. What we're saying is you're cool and
Yeah,
she
yeah, exactly.
is the enemy, bro.
We don't need to talk about my terrible behavior. It's like, no, it's probably on her and her bad sightseeing.
Yeah.
So when you were married to her, where were you living?
Minneapolis.
Oh, okay. So this was a long time
This
ago.
is a long time ago. Yeah.
So you went Minneapolis, Portland, Oakland,
Oakland, LA. Yeah.
Okay. And then,
Yeah.
and so what, you said from Portland to Oakland, it was a job
Mm-hmm.
that brought you. And then what made you decide to leave Oakland?
That's well. I was doing some stand up. The funny thing is, the last time I did stand up, I went to a club with a friend of mine, and I was working on some bit about Prince, and it was about the song "Let's Pretend We're Married" from 1999. And there's a part in the song where he says, "I sincerely want to fuck the taste out of your mouth."
Oh, wow.
And I remember when I heard it, like,
It sounds
like
so
I,
much more crude not coming from Prince.
I know, right? You're like, oh my
Sounds
god.
sexy coming from Prince.
Yeah, Prince
And
says
then
you're like that-
John
that
Walker
tiny
Jones
little
says
man.
it, and you're like, now
No,
he
no,
sounds like
that's
a
pretty.
serial.
Yeah, that's
now
pretty
he sounds
terrible.
like a serial
Yeah.
killer. This is the first time.
But I heard it young, and,
taste out of your mouth.
and
You sound like Buffalo Bill. This is
it terrified me because I wasn't quite like I'm still a hairless little 11-year-old, but I'm hearing this song. I'm like, if that's what's expected, there's no way. There's
Yeah.
there's like
I can't
you might as well
compete with
snap this
Prince.
little baby
Yeah.
carrot off and throw it in the driveway because I'm not fucking the taste out of anybody's mouth. And I was wondering, it's like, well, did Prince ever like, let someone know ahead of time, or was it just like maybe
Yeah.
you slept with Prince and then like he took you out for like Indian food afterwards, and he's like, how's the tiki masala or whatever, and you're like, it's kind of bland and flavorless, like, well, it's because I fucked the taste out of your mouth. Like,
Right.
well, how about a heads up?
He was
maybe
he was the original COVID-19.
I was gonna say he's like before his time.
Now
all
we
the
know where
time.
it started.
Yeah.
It started at
No
Paisley
taste.
Park.
So wait, so that's why you moved to
Well,
LA?
no, but I was
Because you wanted to fuck the taste out of somebody.
He said, if there's one town where I can
there's-
fuck the
yeah.
taste out of mouths.
or if the taste of wanting to fuck me, like immediately that'll be gone. So, but no, I was just kind of, that was an idea that I was kind of going to work on. But when I was there, like every kid was like a 22-year-old white kid talking about jerking off, and it's like, oh my god! And by the time I got up on stage, it's like, I don't even want to do this. I don't want to do this bit. I'm just like, as you know, when you do these open mics that are just kind of a nightmare. And the next morning, my girlfriend at the time sent me a text, and it was the Louis C.K. thing came out. So I was kind of like, what, I'm done. I just don't.
This
like,
is a creepy culture.
it's just like if one less middle-aged white guy walks away, it's not going to be a huge bummer. So
I'm always impressed when people get out of comedy and they're just like, you know what, this wasn't it for me. I started with this guy. His name was Monty something. I started with him in Kansas City, and he moved out to L.A., and I was on the road with Dice, I think, at the time, and he sent me a text. And
Oh,
he said,
really?
Yeah, and he said, I'm in L.A. I was going to try and get up in the open mic at the Comedy Store. Can you help me out? So I said, sure. So I sent a text to someone, and I said, hey, I started with this guy. He wants to just do the open mic. Can you make sure he's one of the 15 people on the list or whatever it was? And they said, yeah, sure. So I came back like a week or two later, something like that, and I said, were you able to get my buddy up? And they said, yeah, he went up. I go, how was it? And they're like, I mean, there was no one here, but, it wasn't great. I'm just like, well, fair enough. So I see him maybe 8 months later, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And he's hanging out the front patio. I'm like, oh, hey, what's up, man? I thought I would see you more. And he was like, yeah, I did open mics for like a couple months out here, and I don't think I should be a comedian. And I was like, whoa, I never heard anyone say that. And I'm like, wow, what are you doing? He's like, I'm in grad school. I think he was getting his like psychology master's degree or
Yeah,
something. I'm
complete
just
like 180.
Yeah. I go, oh, that's fucking great. So I talked to him for a little bit, and then I left. I'm like, I like him more now than ever before. Just
Yeah.
knowing that someone like made the realization after meeting so many delusional people out here, were just like, I got it. And you're like, you haven't had it for 25 years out here. You're not going to get it now.
Yeah, or just the thought that if you move here, then automatically something's just gonna happen.
Right,
Like they're waiting for you. Like,
Yeah.
oh, you're finally here.
We needed.
We needed.
Yeah.
Are you another middle-aged white guy? Oh, thank God you're here.
Yeah.
But wait, so you're doing mics in Oakland?
I did them
and
in
then-
Oakland and Portland,
And then the Louis C.K. thing came out, and then what?
I just was like, just that I was like,
It made
Most
you want to
of
move
his-
to LA?
Well,
That's what I'm curious about.
I thought, okay, well, like I know that I'm funny, and I really think that being funny is just like a lucky gift that you have. Like if you can be funny and you can make yourself laugh and make other people laugh, it makes life so much easier to fucking deal with. You know? So I
Someone
don't
fucked you up in the right way.
Yeah,
is how
so-
I look at it.
I don't necessarily need to like do this for a living. I can still just be funny in my life and just have a good time. And I thought, well, maybe I could be a comedic actor. And I just took a class and
In Oakland?
In Oakland, yeah, is in Berkeley, and the teacher Rolf Saxon.
Sure.
Great name.
As
Yeah,
you go, as you
solid
do.
name. He liked me, and he just after class one day, he's like, I think if you work on this, you could be pretty good. So I'm like, okay, well then I'm gonna whatever you want me to do. Like he kind of became a mentor because any kind of artistic endeavor that I've tried, I never really studied it or just jumped into it. Like I learned how to play guitar, so let's start a band. Or I'm gonna do stand up, so I'm just gonna get there and I'm gonna do it. Or whatever it was. And I thought, well, if I'm gonna try to do this acting thing, let's actually take some classes and like treat it a little bit more seriously and as a craft. And so I just basically told him, like, will you tell me what to do and I'll do it. So it's like, all right, I want you to take this Meisner class, or I want you to take this voice, or whatever. And I just did like 3 years of that, and finally felt like, okay, I've had a couple moments where things are starting to actually kind of feel real. I think I can do this, or at least I have confidence enough to be like, okay,
Give it a shot,
let's give it a shot. And then at the end of December, I decided to move.
December
love that.
2019.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's great. Well, I will say that I think comedy takes a lot of forms. I think when you are inherently funny, like you were talking about, like all the open mics in Kansas City, like there's like these three guys that are always, and it's like the challenge with comedy is making people you don't know laugh. That's the only challenge that there is. If you can make people who don't know the story, anything about you, laugh, because a lot of times when people get really good in Atlanta, it's like people already know your story. You don't have to explain who you
Sure.
are. And then, but when you're fresh on a scene, you have to explain everything about yourself. It's like the pilot of a TV show. It's like there's so much backstory to set up. It's hard to get to the comedy right away.
Yeah.
You have to set up so much stuff about where you are, where it's from,
Yeah.
And so-
Everyone's job, everyone's
Sure.
relationship.
We can all make everybody at the family reunion laugh. It's like people who aren't your family, can you make them laugh? That's the test. And I think what stand-up does to people who are really funny actors and sketch people or writers, like it really like separates you or it helps you find your niche. Like when you're really funny, like what your niche could be stand-up, it could be writing, it could be sketch, it could be writing for other comics. Like you don't know until you really start doing it. And LA is the best place to really sink your teeth in. And I was telling you this outside earlier, but Chappelle always told me that starting stand-up in LA is like learning to dribble in the NBA. Like you're not going to learn mistakes. You're only going to be watching from the best.
Yeah, and I was saying too about how it's much more inspiring when you're at an open mic and everyone's killing it. You're like, oh shit, this is really cool. But when you have this night that is just brutal, and all you want to do is cry yourself to sleep, like let alone get up at like 1:45 in the morning.
Yeah.
It's
Well,
like a
sure.
totally
Nobody,
different
yeah.
thing. But that's what I kind of thought about that when I moved out here, because it's like I'm not against doing it again just for fun, and more so just to meet people, because at least I'll meet some funny people.
Well,
You know.
Bobby Lee always told me you have to bomb 100 times before you're good. And then once you're good, you can bomb for the next 10 years and then be great.
Yeah, well, and bombing's fun.
Well, yeah,
The
I mean,
awkwardness,
Can
and
be.
you get through it, and it's just like
That's
oh,
how
like,
you
it's
figure
like,
out.
Oh, this isn't that big of a deal.
that's
Yeah.
where you figure out, like, that when people talk about writing on stage, like Rick does, and he's like a genius at that. When
Ooh,
you're
Rick,
caught in
you are
a
genius.
trap,
I didn't know that. I didn't know that coming in, that I was going to be
Yep.
sitting across the table from a genius. But
Yeah.
thank
You
God
didn't?
I didn't know, because
Well, now you
I never
know.
would have showed up. Like,
Yeah.
there's no way. I can't sit
A
across
genius
from
from Kansas? Not likely.
yeah, across from a genius from Nebraska. Like,
Yeah.
well, Sarah Tiana Haynes does not drive from the Valley on a Wednesday night if she's not going to be sitting next to
nothing.
a genius.
That's right.
But I think that, like, what happens in those moments of fear, it's like the real you really comes out on stage.
Yeah.
When and that's what open mics are for. You're in this sound chamber that's no longer has an echo of your friends or your family or people telling you that you're great. Like, now you are here amongst people who aren't even listening, who don't care, and it's like, how are you going to deal with those situations? And it
Yeah.
prepares you for the rest of your career.
Well, bartending does a lot of that too, because it's like I have so
It is
many
true.
like lines and stuff that I say that people think
Sure.
was in the moment that I just gave to them, and they're so excited to hear it. And
Yeah.
and I say a lot of really fucked up shit. And my boss would be like, I can't believe the
Yeah.
stuff you get away with saying, but because it's a performance.
Yeah.
You know, and
sure.
when you're coming from a place that's obviously not malicious, and you just want to liberate everybody, and like, yeah, let's all say this weird,
Yeah,
crazy
it's
stuff.
fun.
People get kind of like, oh, I want to say
Oh,
something
I can remember.
silly,
I
or,
waited tables for 10 years, and I can remember dudes being like, I'm gonna give you a tip, and I'm like, why not give me the whole thing? And then I would walk
Ooh,
away.
nice.
And, maybe they give you a couple extra
Canceled.
dollars.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying that, like, you get quick. And
Yeah,
you get fast.
and you have
Yes.
to.
When you're interacting with that many people quickly, I mean, that's what stand-up is. Instead of having everyone in the restaurant paying attention to you, you're having people in, like, or at the bar, just like little bits and pieces paying attention to you,
Yeah.
and you get really quick.
Yeah,
I got good at stand-up comedy because I was here so late at night
Yeah.
and no one was in the crowd, and I'd perform for 4 or 5 people if I was lucky.
Yep.
And it was like, if I would go up there and I'm telling jokes about being from Kansas, and people think the Wizard of Oz, and the crowd, those 4 people are just looking at you like this fucking hack pile of shit.
Yeah.
But you start talking to them, you basically have to make all your jokes have to be about the experience you're having. It
Sure.
all becomes inside jokes, which is really the only way to make a crowd of 4 people laugh.
Mm-hmm.
And that just made me stronger, at least more confident in my ability to not be prepared for, like, not to know exactly what I'm going to say.
yeah. Well, there's the improvisational stuff to me is always like the most fun, and that was kind of part of the reason why I was kind of back and forth with the stand-up, because it's like I don't want to say the same thing over and over, and I don't want to tell the same thing over and over. But being like with my job, it's like I don't know who's going to be there that night, but it's always this improv.
Sure.
And it makes you really sharp.
I think you should try that next time you do like an open mic. Try to just
Are you guys
do crowd
talking me
work.
back into stand-up? Is
No,
that what's
I'm
going
just
on
saying
here?
that-
We're saying
you know
is
what?
that Los Angeles needs comedians.
Los Angeles needs John Walker Jones on stage.
Man.
Do you want your life to be miserable? Because this is the way back in.
I mean, it's definitely tempting, and I do have a friend here that's been doing it, and I'm like, well, I'll go with you, and I'll do some stuff. I think the idea of not being obsessed with something and just kind of stretching out and doing whatever without this idea that's tied to the end of it, because that's always been my problem with art or whatever it is that you're doing. If you have this like idea, like, okay, I'm gonna be a rock star, and I'm gonna make this money, and blah blah blah. It's always this thing this end
Yeah.
result that's gonna happen.
If I'm not touring stadiums, then I'm not successful.
And you will compromise yourself in so many ways, because the only thing you're going for is this end thing, and not as opposed to just this visceral moment and enjoying this thing that you're doing, whether it's music or whether it's stand up or whatever that it is that you're doing. But when because we're as a culture, especially in America, where it's all about work and it's all about money, and your parents are like, well, you're not going to make money doing this, so
Yeah.
you minimize everything to just a monetary end. And that totally ruins the reason why you started doing it to begin with, because it's not enjoyable anymore if that's all you're thinking about.
Yeah.
If you're trying to be an artist of any kind, for sure. If you're just like, I don't have any goals in life, and you just want to be an accountant, then money is the thing that should drive you.
Yeah.
But if you do have a creative endeavor, then money can't be the sole purpose.
Yeah, because let me tell you this: when you're thinking about money, you're not thinking about jokes.
Yeah.
No, well, you're not thinking about songs. You're not thinking about lyrics. You're not thinking about what you're sketching. You're not
writing.
You're
and creating.
it's
You're
pulling
thinking
you out of it,
about
yeah.
consuming, and you can't.
You drift away from your truth, and
Yeah.
It's like consume or create. It's very like,
Decide.
which one do you want to do? Do you want to consume, or do you want to create?
Yeah.
So, and each time I attempt something, at least even if I've had failures, I'll remember that. We're like, oh yeah, when I was in that band in my 20s, I was playing music I hated, like stuff I wouldn't even I would cringe if I heard it now, just because I had been at a point where I was so compromised and so wanting this thing at
this
the
is
end
what
of
it takes to get success.
Yeah,
so I'll do it.
Yeah, well, I get signed to a label, and maybe I can do what I want to do, or
Yeah.
and which are those are good lessons to learn, especially if you're doing something, because it's hard to make a living being a creative. I mean.
Yeah, I mean, you definitely need to find the middle ground. I feel like I've compromised very little in terms of artistic integrity, and I have very little monetary reward for.
But you probably feel good about yourself, or maybe you don't, or you're like, not momentarily.
No, I think the only thing that you ever need and want in comedy is respect amongst your peers. It doesn't matter how much money you have. If you can't walk into a comedy club and everyone is genuinely happy that you're there and excited to watch you, you are a failure.
Yeah.
And Rick has that. So no matter how big of a house he has or what kind of car he drives, like
Do you
the
have a
fact
big
that
house?
when he shows up at the Comedy Store,
What are you
I've
driving,
got a
Rick?
Camry. I'm not going to lie.
you are lying. But no, you're not.
I've got an
he's not
Acura.
lying.
I'm like, ooh.
I'm like, technically I'm in a Corolla tonight, but
It's
yeah.
this is a very small business. There's a very small family. And so you have to have respect amongst your family, and that's what Rick has, and that's why we're here. That's why I'm sitting next to him, because I have respect for him.
That's
too.
why I'm sitting across from
Yep.
him.
Yeah, he just found out who you are, and he's very
I'll
excited.
take it.
I'm very
I'll
a lot
take
of respect.
any three names that want to like me. That's the demographic I'm looking for.
Okay. This was fun.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Thank you. I
no, this
appreciate
is
it.
great.
you.
Thank you so
You're-
much for having me.
Do you
This has
have
been lovely.
social media or anything you want to promote? A bartending gig you want people to come tip? What's
I bartended at a place called Mr. O's
Oh,
in Studio City on Ventura. It's actually like a really cool,
it is a good place.
cool spot. Like
Yeah.
the guy that runs it
The
is
other
amazing.
Sarah goes
They're
there,
all
and
really
that's
nice.
why
Oh,
he's
okay.
here.
I see.
Sarah
And that's
Aswell.
that's a really good
Aswell,
place.
We call her Aswell because she's
She's
Sarah.
the
I know.
second Sarah.
I was upset
As well.
that she wasn't going to be, but she's doing such a good deed tonight. She's taking care of these
she's
dogs
taking care of
and
dogs.
My God, we have good people working on this.
I know. She's
don't
going
like
to get
that at
fired
all.
immediately for being
Yeah,
a
we
good
can
person.
find a garbage person who's not helping people to be on the podcast. All right.
But if you ever see John Walker Jones coming to a city near you,
Yeah.
or just walking down the street,
yeah,
Yeah.
just yell it out.
just yell it
I'll
out.
be happy to hear it.
Say,
Just yell it, no matter where you
or
are.
just yell at me.
you murdered my ears.
That's the way to do it.
But
Yeah.
think the
you
and
shit
think,
in the Grand Canyon.
Oh well,
No.
and I want to thank
Red
you
Bull.
guys because this has been lovely, and I appreciate the opportunity to come down and shoot the shit with you guys.
Here's where he starts crying.
I'm not gonna
I'm getting
cry.
emotional.
I'm gonna cry. I'm gonna cry on the way home.
It's it's cool. I there's enough interesting people in the world, and not every podcast has to just be comedians talking to other comedians about comedians.
Yeah, I think what you're doing is actually pretty cool because it is very a unique idea because people want to hear from what's this famous person doing or whatever. But just to talk as
We
a
want the least
conversational
famous
thing.
person.
Yeah.
I'm just
well,
kidding.
you got it tonight.
I want someone who
I mean, I
was
do have a T-shirt with
regionally-
my name on
yeah.
it.
Who's someone who's regionally known in at least 3 quasi-big American cities.
Yeah.
I want a guy that's left his underwear in Red Rocks.
Listen,
Vegas.
Yeah.
any man who's left his underwear somewhere I'm into talking to. Because
Anyone-
no one's just leaving their underwear for no reason. There's a story behind
Yeah.
every abandoned pair of
I
men's
want to
underwear.
talk
Anyone
to a
that's-
guy that's
that's
gotten
Fed
divorced.
starving coyotes and
Yeah.
the canyons.
He went full George Brett and just
I was
shit
gonna.
his pants.
I was wondering if you were gonna bring up George Brett. Like maybe.
You remember George Brett, baseball player for the Kansas City Royals in the 80s and 90s?
No.
He was like the Royals star.
Mm.
And he shit his pants?
And he
Famously.
yeah,
Famously.
So he was basically like an assistant coach during spring training one year for the Royals.
Okay.
And he did an interview for like some local news station or whatever it was, and they left his mic on while they were just getting shots of him like stretching and stuff so they could use it as like filler for their
B-roll.
news story.
Yeah.
Yeah. And at one point he just walks up to a group of young players stretching and he's like, shit my pants last night. And he's like by far the most famous Kansas City Royal ever. And so like you just see all these young guys like looking uncomfortably like, and he goes on.
Like he had to get it out.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
I gotta share this with somebody.
He's like,
he
you
got
ever-
a lot out.
you ever shit your pants? And the other guy's just like, yeah. He's like, I'm good for 2 a year. And then he proceeds.
Wow.
He proceeds to tell a story about how he was in
needs to watch
Vegas.
his diet or
Yeah.
something. It's like,
Yeah, he tells a story. He's like, we're at this great little restaurant. And then proceeds to tell a story about how he got these crab legs that then caused him to shit his pants in the lobby of the casino.
Vegas, another Vegas.
Another
Yeah.
Vegas, pants shitting story. So he just goes into detail about it. And literally all these guys are just looking around like, how the fuck do I get away from this
yeah,
guy?
like I don't want to hear about this.
And it ends best double tapered shit I ever took. Who we got pitching on Thursday? He just goes straight back into baseball talk, and everyone's like, that's every shit my pants story just reminds me of Kansas City legend George.
Well,
Brett.
and definitely seafood is can all.
Yeah,
that's
it's always
that's
a-
dicey.
always playing the odds
Yeah.
in Vegas.
You
You gamble a different way, even if you're not losing money.
yeah, crab legs in Vegas, you might shit your pants.
Well, this weekend when I'm in Vegas, I'll put my money on brown instead of black or red. How about
Nice.
that?
There you go.
Well played.
And play some baccarat or whatever.
Thanks for listening, guys. Rate us all the stars. A million. If they let you do
Yeah.
a million stars,
Do
rate us a
6.
million.
6 stars at least.
We got live
That's
show.
a big. That's a big divide.
Yeah.
Let's do 6. Well, how about a million? Like, all
Tell
right,
them to do a
maybe-
million. If they do 6, that's fine. But live show here at the Comedy Store in the Belly Room, December 8th. We're going to have people in the crowd. We'll pick people from the crowd to interview, and it'll be a good time. So come out, have fun, bring your friends, people we can make fun of. We're always happy to mock anything that can be mocked. So
Yeah, and if you'd also like to be a guest on the actual
The regular
in-studio
podcast, yeah.
just DM Ingram Pod on Twitter or Instagram, or you can DM myself, Sarah Tiana, on Instagram.
yeah, me too. If you want, I'll send it over.
Oh yeah,
I don't know. It'll take me a few days to see it probably because I'm a square from the 1900s. But yeah,
okay, cool.
yeah.
All right,
Thanks, guys.
thanks. If you'd like to be a guest on our show, please DM Ingram Pod on Twitter. That's INGRAHAM Pod on Twitter.
Goodbye to everyday people.
Special thanks to the Comedy Store and to Brian Rips for the dope ass music.